No, I guess he didn't show up. Either way, anyway, so the question is like this. If you pay attention to the Gemara here, it's like a little more than an Amud. The Gemara doesn't even go through all the psukim. The Gemara skips around. And it's only the first parak of Eicha. It's not more than that. Saying Medrash Eicha goes through a lot more, and more in depth and more detail. And a lot of the Zachin that's mentioned here in the Gemara is mentioned there also. Right, but upon him, that's what's happening. Okay, so we had this Maisa with this people taken captive, and they were able to tell, because like, you Jews just don't stop. You Jews just don't stop with your Chachma. You think everything has to be Dvar Chachma. It's just interesting, because the Gemara says that if somebody says that Dvar Chachma by the Goyim, even by the Goyim, there's such a thing as Chachma. Chachma b'Goyim Tamen, Torah b'Goyim Zal Tamen, Chachma b'Goyim Tamen, right? So it's just very interesting that the Vice Dois that Hayu Tzareh L'Roish, that B'chol Rabbosi b'Goyim Sirasi b'Amdinas Kol Mogim Shehin Holchem Nasim Soren Ladeineim. It's mashma from this Gemara that the reason why they became the Sar, the reason why they became Soren Ladeineim is als the Chachma Shaboy. Fine. So let's see Rashi. Rashi on top. It's over here. Rashi over here because there's no Taisus. So, one of the captives said to his friend, and how did he know? Because doesn't eat on one side and sometimes the other side. Kind of like an animal that sees that it eats from both sides. It only sees on one side, so it only eats from that side. And he said he knows that there's yayin metafta fishekea bekarka. He saw that the wine was dripping and was seeping into the ground. So like it made a little tiny indentation in the ground, and the other one, you saw that the liquid wasn't going into the ground. So I said, vice versa, one is wine and one is oil. There's a lot of things that this Gemara is being maramas to be'etzam, but for now we're learning Yikab Pshutai. So nifna l'tzdadim shkein derech Yisrael liyos tzanua. The derech of Yidden is to be tzanua. So the Rad of Acharav chased after him. On Hashaboy derech hagam of Hamad Gamotzak Devrayim, he chased after to see what was going on. But Amru Oisam Yehudim al Oisay Shaboy are the names from cluster Melech Ashkanak Belaz Shohed Yukni Dem Lamagmas Panam Shloisi cluster Shal Melech Shebeznus Haydlidai. What's this? Okay, I'm not sure what this Rashi is saying. A whole different story over here. The Amru, here's Yud Aleph here. Okay, so if you look in the Hagos Tziyunim here, there's a whole new shtickle Gemara. It's based on Hagos Tziyunim. I don't know if your Gemara has it. While Kopanim it says, Amru Loi. So he said that the Nachri is Nifnel at Derech and Yisrael is Nifnel at Stodim. So right there it says Amru Loi Kamaduma Lanu Shadeinenu Ben Cluster Shel Melechu. Kamaduma, that this person, that our master, is the son of Cluster, of the king. Halach v'shali imay. So he went to ask his mother, who's his real father. Amaloi, he said to him, Imat magedes limutiv v'mlav ani mitzava v'horgan oisach.
Yeah. He's in yeshiva. Yeshiva now. White's no listener.
So we hear the Hagoyis bring the rest of the story, and it says that he says, who's my real father? And it says, if you don't tell me, I'm going to kill you. Amr Eloi, she said to him, B'ni b'shas chuppah yotza baila. He said, b'shas my chuppah, my husband went out. V'nichnas klasta shamelech, whatever that means, maybe the son of the king or some kind of king. Upa aleha v'nazabra mimeno. And the real father left, and this person came in and was born on the mother. And that's where the child was from. Hevi lahem basar, so he brings him meat. Amr le basar zeh yesh by tam kelef. So this meat tastes like dog food. Halach v'shalim, so he goes and asks his mother, Amr le mat magedes limotiv. If you tell me good from lav, ani mitzava horgan oisach. If you don't tell me what this meat is about, it'll kill you. Amr le, so she said to me, kivsa achas yesh lanu mesa. So we had one sheep and it died. V'hinikum mikal ba'achas. And it nursed from one kalba. That's why it tastes like dog meat. Hevi lem yayin, so bring him wine. Amrla yain zayesh betames says tastes like dead in here. Halach v'shal imay amrla yain medalia shall cover avicha. Says there was a grapevine that grew out right above your father's kever, and that's why it tastes like dead things. Nasal and kesav izov. It's brought down in Rashi sort of miramis to this. He has a few of the words over here. V'amru oisem Yehudim leisei shabbat the name should be in cluster melech. Shahay diyuknoi dem lemagmas pnei oisei shel oisei cluster shamal shabeznus halidei. So there's nus halidei that says yanamasa that happened by the chuppah. That's what he's referring to over here. Okay, it's not mamish clear what this story is or what this girsa is, but I'll call upon him to state that this is who this person was. Okay. The Gemara continues darshaning the psukim in Megillas Eicha in the Sefer Kinos. He was crying at night. Shtei bechiyos halalu lama. Why two bechiyos? Why two cryings? Omer Rabba, Rabbi Yechanan. Rabba says the name Rabbi Yechanan. Echad HaMikdash Rishon and Echad HaMikdash Sheni. One of the first Beis HaMikdash and one on the second Beis HaMikdash. The Shaila is in Bisman by Sheni, when the Beis HaMikdash was still standing, did the people had to commemorate Tisha B'Av or not? The Beis HaMikdash was still standing. It's the Gemara. What about all the other tiniest? The other tiniest are also more or less about Churban. So what did they do? Right? Just interesting that in the Churban Bayis Rishon, Huvka Ha'ir happened on Tisha B'Tammuz. And we Lamaisa don't do anything on the 9th of Tammuz. We do everything on the 9th of Av. Yud Zayin B'Tammuz was second round. Fine. Balaylo. So what's Balaylo? I mean, it's interesting. The Gemara says in Yomud that the first Beis HaMikdash was Necharav because of the Gimel Chamuras. The second Beis HaMikdash was Necharav al Senas Chinam. So you can't say that they didn't learn their lesson, right? Because what does Gilei Rayis or Shveichas Damim or Avodah Zarah got to do with Senas Chinam? L'char Senas Chinam, it's Egen Zach. L'char it's not the same. The Gemara says that Rishonim Shenizgalu Avonim Nizgalu Kitzam. He says the first Beis HaMikdash is very clear what the Avera was, what they were doing. So the Kates, the Seif HaGolus of the first Beis HaMikdash was Nizgalu Lahem. Ma'asha'in Kain and Bayasheni. So it was Lo Nizgalu Avonim. It was Lo Nizgalu Avonim. It was Lo Nizgalu Kitzam. Says the Avera was
the famous Rav Weisner.
I'm famous? I'm not famous.
I just met him in Bnei Shalom.
You in Shul, in Avalon, you have to calm down.
Okay.
I see you standing and you will have I'm going to make you run around the block for 2 or 3 times before you come in. But anyways, Malomdim.
Sanhedrin, the Gemara darshaning the psukim of Eicha.
Sanadrain, Sanadrain. I will bring 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
זכיתי.
Hashem.
פגשתי אותו, הספיק
I speak him.
פגשתי אותו, לא יודע, השם הביא אותו על יד בני שלום, רציתי להתפלל פה, אמרתי, אתה יודע מה, לא, אני אלך לבני שלום. הוא עומד, מה קורה? אני ככה, ממש, אז ככה.
That's it. That's what it
והנה,
said.
אני לומד גם עכשיו קצת, ופגשתי את כבודו,
Elchana.
אלחנן.
אלחונן.
מה זה אלחונן?
אלחונן, זה ככה הם אומרים, זה הגייה שלנו. אלחונן חיים. אלחונן.
Alle vlammen, Gesnien en Denian.
אלחונן, זה ככה הם
זה
אומרים.
המבטא שלו,
ככה
נכון?
הם מבטאים את התפילה גם.
אוקיי, מה המבטא?
וזה ככה,
אלחונן.
זה המסורה.
זה גזון.
Also leren,
כן,
כן,
Yeah.
תלמד, תלמד.
I don't can English,
English, Yiddish, and Ivrit.
בסדר, תלמד, תפתח סדר. מה, באיזה דף?
Kuf Dal Ramad Beis.
אז זה בסוף,
Can't.
ק"ד.
Yeah.
זה במסכת סנהדרין.
כן. You want to find Pim Kuf Daled on base.
One page.
Bachai Sivka Balayla.
הנה פה. יש חלקים.
הנה קוף. עמוד ב'. Where?
The pasuk says in Eicha, Bachai Sivka Balayla, the second pasuk, the zweite pasuk in Eicha steht, says, Bachai Sivka Balayla. The Gemara asks, what are the two bechiyas? What, Lama yesh te bechiyot? Favos they weinen zweimal? Favos the zwei weiniges? Yeah? Why are they crying twice? So sagt die Gemara, Amar Rabba, Rabbi Yechanan, Rabba says in the name Rabbi Yechanan, Echad HaMikdash Rishon, Ve'echad HaMikdash Sheni. One for the first base of Mikdash, and one for the second base of Mikdash. It's interesting that Yirmiyahu Navi, who wrote Eicha, was in the Bayis Rishon, right? But it was a nevuah that there's going to be a second Churban also.
Wow.
So, Pashtus, otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? But
So Bacho is for the first, Tivke is for the
yeah,
second.
yeah. The Gemara Yuma says that the Bayis Rishon was Nechrav because of the Gimel Chamuris, Gilarayas, Shrichas Dam and Avodah Zarah, and so the first base of Mikdash was Nesgalu Avoinam, was Nesgalu Kitzam. So because it was clear.
בחוף מקדש ראשון, כן מקדש שני.
כן, חורבן ראשון.
Yeah.
כן, מה היה
The Gemara says there was the Gimel Chamuris, Gilei Arayis, Shvichas Damim, and Avodah Zarah.
מה זה?
ג' חמורות, 3 עבירות שאם אתה עושה, אומר לך או שתעשה או שאתה צריך למות. אם אומרים לך תהיה עם גזל או להרג, צריך להרג. אם אומרים לך תעבוד, תימח שמו וזכרו, או זה צריך למות. או להרוג מישהו או למות. זה הסיבה של הראשון.
אז זה בשביל זה נחרב.
הראשון,
כן. Ken. And the Gemara says that the Mikdash Rishon was Nechrav, was Nizgalu Avoinam, it was Nizgalu Kitzam. Shehim Yadu, Ma Shehaya Ha'avonam.
אז זה כמו היה סדום ועמורה פה.
כן, כן. כן, זה היה.
מה שהיה זה כמו סדום.
Yeah.
לא, לא. מה שהיה זה בגלל שהם
כסתאים היינו, למה לא דמינו.
It's because we were in such a high level, every little thing was very strict with Hashem.
זה היה, השם היה...
Because the Dorot were much higher back then than we say now, right? So it wasn't like Amorah.
Yeah, so the Gemara says that the Mikdash Rishon was Nizgalu Avoinam, meaning that the Averis that they did was very clear what they were doing and that it was wrong. So it was Nizgalu Kitzam. So the end of the Galus was very clear to them. They were 70 years in Galus, and then they came back and they built the Bayis Sheni. They built the second base of Mikdash. But the second base of Mikdash was Lo Nizgalu Avoinam, so it was Lo Nizgalu Kitzam. The Averis that they did, which the Gemara says was the Naschinam, right? It wasn't Nizgala. It wasn't out in the open, right? Because Sinas Chinam, I don't necessarily know. You don't necessarily know who I'm Sonei. Zeh Belev. That's not the path. Hagam that Mefarshim learned that it means that it was Lashon Hara, right? That it was that's what Rabbi Bernstein
זה גם
mentioned.
כן סתור.
Yeah.
כן, כן, סתור בתוך הלב של בן אדם.
Ken. And that's the pshat in what was going on. So it was because it was Leinas Galu Avoinam, it was Leinas Galu Kitzam. And we're still in that same Golus from the Bayis Sheni. Right? So that's why we always say that we have to be misakan this chet of Sinas Chinam and Lashon Hara and whatever else was the cause of that. Yeah. Okay. Weiter. Balayla. B'chaysivke Balayla. So what does it mean Balayla? Zok the Gemara al Iskei Laila. Because of something that happened at night. What does it mean al Iskei Laila? Zok Rashi. So Rashi is on this side. There's no Taisus on Chelak. Al Iskei Laila lefisha Bachu Oisei Laila b'chias Chinam. This is going back to the story of the Meraglim in the Midbar, and because they cried that night b'chia shel Chinam. So then this is the famous Gemara. Amar Rabba Rabbi Yechanan. I'm sorry, I skipped the line over here. Amar Rabba al Iskei Laila shenemar. The pasuk says, "Vatisa kol ha'eda vayitnu es kolim vayivko am ba'laylahu." Says the entire nation of Klal Yisrael lifted up their voices and they cried ba'laylahu.
מה זה? העסקה זה לא מתאים פה.
The Iskei Laila is ma shehem bachu v'oto halayla. שהם עשו עסק על הבכייה.
דיבר על הארץ, כן.
כן.
אז זה על הדיבה של הארץ, כן.
Yeah. Zok the Gemara that It's just interesting. The Teres Chaim speaks out over here that it says Balayla Ahu. He says that night, not Balayla Hazeh. It should have said Balayla Hazeh, not Balayla Ahu. Balayla Ahu means the Laila that's going to be Asad Lepuranus for all the Dairis, that's going to be Leil Tisha B'Av. Meaning that Tisha B'Av is Etzem Laila. Afilu Sho Yom Achshav, Aval Ze Kol HaGalut, Ze Kol HaChoshech, Ze Kol HaChoshech, Ze K'mo Laila. Afilu Bayom Bahir, K'mo Hayom, Ze Laila, Ze Choshech, Ze Galut. Fine. That's Al Iskei Laila, Lefi Shabachu, Oitze Laila B'Chiyas China. Omar Rabba, Omar B'Yechanan, Leil Tisha B'Av Haya. It was the night of the 9th of Av. Omar Lem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Klal Yisrael, Atam B'chisa Mechir Shal Chinam, you cried for no reason. V'ani Ekva Lechem Mechir L'Dairis. I'm going to be keveh for you. I'm going to give you something, like they say, I'll give you something to cry about. You're crying for nothing. You see a little kid crying because.
זה חורבן ראשון, חורבן שני.
זה היה לפני זה, כשהיו ישראל במדבר. זה כשהיו ישראל במדבר.
כן, לפני זה.
הרבה לפני זה. ואני אקבל לכם בחיל הדיירס, there's going to be a בחיל הדיירס, and that's why Tisha B'Av became kavua as a yom, as a day for all Puranos, for all the dairis.
בגלל שמה שהם עשו זה היה בתשעה באב, בגלל זה כל תשעה באב יש סיבה
Yeah, but I get a chumash right behind you.
זה
Oh, the chumash right.
שתי הבתים נחרבו בתשעה באב.
כן, בכל הדור. כן.
Does it have a
Also,
chagiga in it, or
Beit
it's
Av,
my cut?
right?
Yeah,
It was also Tisha.
just my cut. Okay, I would see if you get a chagiga, but if not, it's also good. I just want to show you a very interesting thing. In Parshas Dvarim, so we know that the story of the Meraglim was, we know what the story of the Meraglim was. Right in Parshas Shlach, that's where the Torah tells us the story of the Meraglim. But there's many parts of the story of the Meraglim that the Torah only tells us when Moshe Rabbeinu was chazering over, when Moshe Rabbeinu was saying over the story of what happened by the Meraglim in Parshas Dvarim. So the first pasuk in Shlishi, in Parshas Dvarim, it says, "V'atikru v'nei lai kolchem," and they all came close to me. V'atamru, and they said, "Nishlucha anashim lefanenu," let us send people in front of us. V'yachperu lanu v'sa'aretz, that they could, spy out, that they could find out about Eretz Yisrael for us. V'yeshivu isanu davar, and they'll come back with a report as adarach hashan alaba, which way we should go to conquer Eretz Yisrael. V'sa'arim hashanove aleim, which cities we should go conquer first. Right. So what does it mean v'atikru v'nei lai kolchem? Rashi says a very interesting thing. Rashi says, Birbuvya, they came all mixed up. It was all confused. The pasuk later on says, Vatikru v'nei kol rashi shiftechem, and they came close to me, all the leaders of the Shvatim, uzeknechem atem rehein haronu. But different parsha, when they came to Moshe Rabbeinu, they came all misudar. And this was all out of order. What's pshat? That coming close to Moshe Rabbeinu was hagenes. Was proper, was appropriate, was in order. Yelodim mechabdim as Canaan. The children, the youngsters were mechabed the elders, v'sholchom lefneim, and the youngsters were mechabed the elders, and they went in front of them. It was Canaan mechabdim as haroshim, and the elders were mechabed the roshim, the people in charge. L'leches lefneim, that the roshim should be the ones to speak, the Rosh Hashivas, the Gedalim, that they should be the ones to speak to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they'll bring it back to the Am. Avolkan, but by the Chetem Meraglim it says Vatikru v'nei lai kolchem. So they all came close, all at once. Birbuvya, all mixed up. Yeladim deichvenes has Canaan. The youngsters were pushing the older people. It was Canaan deichvenes harashim, and this Canaan were pushing the youngsters. It became like a whole tumult. It became a whole mess. Everyone's pushing these ones pushing those ones, and then the Meraglim come back with a report about with the Dibas Haaretz, with the Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael. And then there's a Bechir Shal Chinam, and then there's a Bechir Shal... They made a Bechir Shal Chinam, which then caused a Bechir Shal Deiris. We have a Gemara Chagiga. The Gemara Chagiga says, it's important to see the exact lesson of the Gemara. I'll go find it real quick.
כן, אני מבין אותו משהו. אלא מה שיש לפעמים צריך לשאול שאלות על מה הקשר. כן, כמו שעכשיו, מה פתאום שהם כולם מתערבים עכשיו, המוח לא עובד, והם כבוד אחד עם כלים. זה מה שהיה, אין כבוד, לא עשו כבוד, כמו שהרב אומר, שהקטנים היו צוחקים על המבוגרים, על הזקנים.
היום זה קורה.
היום זה קורה.
כן, בטח, that's what I wanted to say. But I think there's a Gemara that gives it that help us understand what was going on over there. So, where is it? Let's see, Dalet in Chagiga. The Gemara says that Yud Ches Klolos, Yeshaya Hanavi was talking about the Churban that's going to be, and he says that Yud Ches Klolos v'len Skarer Adaitoi ad she'omar lahem yiravu anar bezokein v'nichbad b'nikla. So the question is, it says the yiravu anar bezokein, that the nar will be chutzpah to the zakenim, and v'nikla b'nichbad, and a person who should be mechubad, they're mevazehem. And that's what was Niskara Daita Shal Yeshaya. Oh, here we are. Shmoina Esrei Klalos Kil Yeshayas Yisrael. There are 18 klalos that Yeshaya was Mekalo Klal Yisrael. V'lei Niskara Daita Etcher Omer Lehem HaMikra Hazeh Yirabu Anar Bezoken V'nikla B'nichbad. Shmoina Esrei Klalos Ma'inenu. So the Gemara goes through what these 18 klalos are. And the Gemara darshans them. Question is, what's the pshat in this whole business? He said there's going to be 18 peranios, and the last one, meaning that the final one, the one that's going to give the final knack, the one that's going to give the final zet, that's going to show that this is what the Churban is really all about, is that Yirhabu anar bezokein v'nikla b'nichbad. So what's the idea here? What does the Gemara want with this? So if I understand correctly, the pshat is azay. We'll explain it with another thing. The Gemara Tainus brings the 5 peranios that happened on Tisha B'Av, right? And one of them was that Turnus Rufus Harasha was plowed over the Mokum HaMikdash. L'kayim Mashenemar to be Mekayim the pasuk of Tzion Soda Techarish. That the Tzion, the Beis Hamikdash, the Mokum HaMikdash is going to be plowed over. Well, why is that like the spitz of the Churban? Why is that the worst part of the whole Churban? But I think that the pshat is like this. Pshat is that if someone lives in a house and the house falls down or the house has a fire, so then there's they put up the green wall around it, and here's the construction site, they're rebuilding. So even though there was a tzara, but you see that the rebuilding is not so bad. But then let's say somebody somebody lived in a house, and the fire fire destroys it, and then it gets neglected, and then a couple of months later, you see there's like a whole forest that's growing in the makom where the house used to be. So then 3 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later, you walk by this spot, and there's nothing there. There's nothing left of it anymore. So there's no zecher. There's no zecher afilo of what that used to be a house over here. So Tzion said that Techarish is the pshat that it used to be that people knew, oh, this was the makom HaMikdash. But now return to service to Russia, plowed over. There's nothing left. There's not even a zecher of what the makom HaMikdash used to be. So why is that the worst part of the Churban? It's the worst part of the Churban, but whenever we hit rock bottom, whenever we hit the lowest of the low, the Shval HaMatzav, that's when we know that we're going to be Zoycha to Geula. So that's why Daita Shal Yeshaya until he said Yirhavu anar bezoken v'nikla b'nichbad. Because once you get to that point, then you know there's only one Eitzah, because we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to forget about Klal Yisrael. So there's only one thing that's going to happen, and that thing is that the Geula is going to come. Meaning that it was so bad. Because if you go through the Gemaras at the end of Saita, Chutz B'Yazga and Oivei Yish Anshe Beisai and the whole thing, Beis Havat Hiyal is Nus, and all these horrible things that the Gemara talks about over there at the end of Saita. So what does the Gemara say over there? There's only one thing that we could do, is to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is nothing else. Meaning Kolzman, that we have other things we could say, oh, we'll be Samech on this, we could be Samech on that. If you go through the Psukim and Nach throughout, come out the whole Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, Yecheskel, a huge taina that the Navi has on Klal Yisrael is that you're relying on the Goyim for this, and who's going to protect you? The Goyim are going to protect you. Ashur and Bavel and this one and that one and the other, they're all going to protect. they're all
Donald
going.
J. Trump.
Everyone's going to protect you, right? But the Ma'aseh of the time is that you're forgetting about Hashem. Hashem is going to protect you. Ein lanu lishan ela b'nishmas shamayim. Right? So I think that that's the pshat. And when they came to Moshe Rabbeinu Be'erbuvia, the Na'arim were pushing this cane, but that's what it's going to look. That's what happened then. But that's also what it's going to look like at the very, very end. Meaning the last kufa before Bikvis the Mashiach Chutz B'Yazga, like the Gemara says in Soita, right? It was mushrash. It was already mushrash in the Chet Meraglim. We're very used to understanding the story of the Meraglim as the pshat that it was the Bechir Shel Chinam that led to the Bechir Shel Durst, which is also true. I'm not taking away from that, but I think that besides that also, Vashteit and Rashi, where Rashi says over here in Parshas Dvarim, Vatikum from the Kulchem, that everybody was pushing everybody else, right? And the Gemara said, take it a step weiter.
So it's a sign.
Yeah, and to take it to the next step, it says that Allah said, "Love HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give schar to Klal Yisrael." And all the HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Sefer Torah Munachas Bechekei, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be holding a Sefer Torah, and all the Umas Ha'elam are going to line up in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they're all going to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu if we could get schar for all the good things that we did. And they're all going to come Be'erbuvia. They're all going to come Be'erbuvia. Same ideas over here. All the Umas Ha'elam, they think that they're so special, they're going to get everything. We didn't even get everything. You chappered the Yidden, you bothered the Yidden, you killed the Yidden, you harassed them, you chased them out of your land, chased them everywhere. You made all kinds of tzars for them. You think you're going to get schar?
You see it today.
Yeah. And then they also come Be'erbuvia. And Hashem says, I don't want it Be'erbuvia. I need you to make Seder. So what happens is, so then Malchus, right? Then the Gemara says, who comes first or why? Right? But what's the concept of Be'erbuvia means that Be'erbuvia is the opposite of covered. Right? That's Vanichbad Benikla. Right? Nichbad means, I know my place. I know where I belong. I know who I am. Right, like we said, but we explained before. What's the opposite of Echa Yashva Badad? What's Badad? Like a Mitzayra has to sit alone by himself, banished from the Machana. Right? The pasuk also says Vayeshev Betach Badad En Yaakov. The pasuk says that Klal Yisrael would have enough confidence to be able to sit securely by themselves. I could be just me. I don't need any help from anybody else. I could be just me. Right? But if it comes Be'erbuvia, the pshat is that it's a tumult. It's overwhelming. There's too much going on. I need to know clear. I need to have clarity. I need to know who's what, where. I need to know what's first, what's second, what's third. Everything needs to have a certain order. Everything needs to have a certain makom, a certain zman. It can't just be everything all happening at once. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's not happening Be'erbuvia. It has to come in a seder. The Goyim try to make Be'erbuvia for us. So that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them, not so fast. And then they say all kinds of things that they did to try to help Klal Yisrael. And Ma'aseh Hashem says, Shreitim Shabaylam, and he gives them the mitzvah of sukkah, and it makes it very hot, and they kick the sukkah when they leave. Ayin Sham, Gemara V'Dazar, the Beis on the Beis. Okay, weiter. Davar Acher, B'Layla. What's the pshat B'Layla? Shekol HaBoicha B'Layla Koilei Nishma. Anybody who cries at night, their voice is heard more than by day. Zok Rashi, what does it mean? That a person's voice is heard more at night than during the day. Like the Gemara says in Yomod of Chafam and Beis, why is it that a person's voice is heard more at night than during the day? The cycle of the sun moving in the sky makes a lot of noise, and that's what doesn't allow us to hear sounds in the day as much as we could hear them at night. Okay? That the voice of Klal Yisrael crying should be heard. There's still no nechama for Klal Yisrael.
נגיד, אתה עכשיו באמצע היום, נכנס למטבח, מוציא איזה כלי, זה לא עושה כזה הרבה רעש. עכשיו אתה זוכר שהיית ילד, היית נכנס הביתה בלילה, מוציא משהו, פתאום איזה רעש, אז הוא עושה.
כן.
זה הרעיון, למה בתפילות נשמעות יותר בלילה לקדוש ברוך הוא. כמו שאתה מוציא איזה כוס וזה עושה רעש וכל המטבח ממהיר את כולם. כולם מתעוררים. אותו דבר גם בתפילות בלילה.
Yeah. דבר אחר. This is a very interesting thing. בלילה. Shakala Beicha Balayla, anybody who cries at night, Kechavim Mazal is Beichem Imay. The Kechavim Mazal is Beichem, the Kechavim and the Mazal and Shemayim cry with him. Rashi says, Shenichmer Rachamim Alav, because they also have Rachmanus on them. If you look in the Kinnis, throughout the Kinnis that we said, it keeps on talking about how the different Kechavim and the Mazalos are crying with Klal Yisrael. And the MS is because they they're out of place. Kol Zman and Klal Yisrael is out of place. They're also suffering in the Golus together with Klal Yisrael.
That was in last night's keynotes, right?
Yeah.
We have the timetable. for
Kimo,
the-
Ksil, and all the Mazalos.
Yeah.
It's all spoken about in the keynotes. Davar Acher, Balayla, Shekol HaBoicha Balayla, HaShomea Koiloi Boiche Kenegdoi. When you hear somebody crying at night, it's ma'ir you to cry also. There's a story with a woman who was the neighbor of Rabbi Gamliel that her son died. And she would cry about him every night. The Rabbi Gamliel was the neighbor. And Rabbi Gamliel heard her crying, and he was desired to cry also. And he cried the whole night together with her. And until his eyelashes fell out. And the next day they recognized that something happened to the Talmidim recognized that something happened to the Rebbe, because they saw that he looked very, when a person cries, then they look up, you could see that they were just crying, you could tell. So they saw the Rebbe looked like he was very sad today, so they, doesn't say that they asked him, but they realized that it was the neighbor that was making Rabbi Gamliel cry, so they removed her from the neighborhood. So I don't know, it bothers me a shtickle, this Gemara, because I don't know, she's the Isha that's Pitzar, and she should be Mitzar on the passing of her son, and they don't want Rabbi Gamliel to cry. Rabbi Gamliel should be Mishtatev Pitzar Pitzaros and Shalacherim, and why is it that they were Meitzir from the Shchuna?
It's Metzair the Talmid Chacham. Even though it's very sad, but the Torah of the Talmid Chacham may be bigger in Shamayim than
So
the
the
Tzar of the Almanah.
Maharsha says maybe that maybe on something. The Maharsha says that brings the Medrash Eicha. The Medrash Eicha says that Rabbi Gamliel heard her crying, and he would remember about the Churban Beis Hamikdash, and he would cry about the Churban, and that's why it was Noshru Risei Einov. It's because of the Churban. But I don't know. I'm not sure. Just want to see if there's anything else that we could say over here. They don't say over here, but I don't know. It's just the struggle bothers me. But you're probably right. Something to do with that. The fact that there was something about that the Talmidim didn't like it. That it was bothering the Talmidim. Maybe Rabbi Gamliel wasn't able to learn as well the next day because he was still thinking about the tzaros of the neighborhood. It's very hard. We've had many of our gedolim, many of our rebbeim. They have their personal tzaros, and they're definitely hearing about other people's tzaros. And lulei sarasko shashuai, not for the Torah that they're able to hold on to, they would be totally tzaklap, totally destroyed. Okay. Weiter sagt die Gemara v'demasah lecheyo, and the tears are on her cheeks. Omar Rabba, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, ki isha shaboicha al baal neureha, like a woman who cries about her husband. Shenemar Eli Kibsula Chagur Asaka Bal Neureha, which is the pasuk that we use in the Kinnus of Elitzion Ve'oreha, is based on this pasuk in Yoel, that really the Gemara says that nothing can compare to a person's, the simcha and the chedva that a person has when he's married to his first wife. But Pamar Rishon, it's very, very, very exciting, and nothing else can compare to that. So if that chibur if that connection gets lost or gets broken, it turns into tremendous churban and tremendous tzara. And there's nothing that could compare to that tzaros.
האם זה המשל עכשיו, כל הבכייה וכל מה שקורה עכשיו זה על החורבן של הבית? זה רק משלים פה. אישה שהפסידה, לא הפסידה וכל זה. אז כל זה רק על החורבן.
חז"ל מדברים בקודים. חז"ל הם מדברים
כן,
במשל.
במורס כזה.
כן.
אתה יודע איזה מילה?
אתה יודע זה.
למדתי.
כן.
למדתי מורס. הייתי צריך להיות קפטן של אונייה. לא קפטן. אופיסר של...
First commander.
כן, במורס, באונייה. אז הלכתי לבית ספר ולמדתי.
פופ.
כן, זה משגע.
All right, but that's what it says. That Eli Gibsula Chagur Asaka Bal Neureha, which is the pasuk in Yoel again, that means that Eli is a lashon of kina, of tremendous sorrow and sadness. Kipsula chelgur asak, like a psula who was put on a sackcloth about the rebel because she lost her husband. Hayu tzareh al roish.
פה מדברים, lost her husband, stop right there. lost her husband, that means כנסת ישראל איבדה את המקור שלה, נכון?
Yeah.
אז זה כמו משהו כזה עכשיו, נערותיה, זאת אומרת שזה מדברים על כנסת ישראל ועם ישראל אז.
כן.
שהוא איבד את
השכינה
הכתר
lost its
כן,
place.
Yeah.
שהיא עזבה את המקום,
כן.
השכינה. וזה הכל נכון, הכל כמו קוד כזה, כן.
כן.
אוקיי,
Yeah.
בבקשה.
Hayu tzareh al roish, the tzareha, the enemies of Klal Yisrael, the people that made problems for Klal Yisrael, became in charge. Became the leaders. What does it mean? So it's like the Gemara, my Rava, Rav Yechanan, Rava says the name Rav Yechanan, that the kavanah of the pasuk is Kol hametzer Yisrael nasa reish. Anybody who does a good job at bothering the Yidden, the poranus is if Klal Yisrael is not doing what they're supposed to do, so nasa reish. They become the leaders.
הוא לידר of what?
כל המצר לישראל נעשה ראש, כל מי שמציק ליהודים,
כמו
פתאום הוא
מה
נהיה
שקורה
גדול,
היום.
כמו מה
כן.
שקורה היום, בדיוק.
You see, these guys today, all these big anti-Semites, the bigger anti-Semite you are, the
אז הוא
more.
מקבל
כוח.
טייל.
Can, even bigger and bigger. And the Maharsha in Chagiga speaks out a very interesting thing. Why should it be that they Kalametz Yisrael Nasa Rosh? Maybe they should be lowly people,
Absolutely.
right? They are lowly people. But the Maharsha says that if
ושמחפשים כבוד.
you can. But Maharsha says that if they wouldn't be chashuvim, if they wouldn't be chashuv in any capacity, meaning if they would be lowly people, it would be a bizayon for Klal Yisrael to have to be meshubet to such lowly people. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu makes it that even if it's just in the chitzonius of it, but at least there's some kind of chashivos, there's some kind of cover. So that's the pshat. Okay, fine. A little bit more, and then we'll take a break. Ki lo muav lashamutzak lo ke'es harishon hekal artzas vulon v'artzas naftali v'achan hich b'derech hayam eva yardin glil hagoyim. So this is a pasuk in Yeshaya. Should probably take a look in the psukim in Yeshaya to see what this means exactly. Okay.
כל מה שהולך היום בארץ.
זה בדיוק זה הנבואה.
ברדק שלום.
בגלל זה לומדים את זה בתשעה באב. זה
גם
הלימוד
היום
את זה.
דיברו על זה.
כן?
היום דיברו על זה בחדשות.
כן? מה אמרו?
דיברו על זה שלא רוצים מדינה יהודית של יהודים. רוצים להיות כמו הגויים באירופה.
כן. כי lo muav lashamutzak lo. There won't be kilemuaf is lashon of ayefus. They won't be tired. Lashamutzak lo. The ones that are bothering Klal Yisrael, they never stop. They never get tired.
Oh, well, we know that today.
Yeah, you know that.
לגרמנים, לערבים,
הם-
לחמאס, זה לא
הם
נגמר.
יושנים וקמים על זה.
כן.
כל 24 שעות. זה במוח שלהם, קם, הוא יושן, מתעורר, ועוד פעם, הוא לוקח ברייק ואוכל משהו ואחר כך ממשיך.
Yeah. Yeah. Ke'es harishon hekal artzas vulon. Really, the pasuk is talking about that there were 3 stages of when Klal Yisrael went into Golus by Ashur. So it doesn't stop. It comes once, and Oda Pam, and then Nacha Golus, and then Oda Pam, and then Oda Pam Golus. 3 times. Kilemuaf, loitia ayefus, no tiredness, la shamutzak lo. To the Melech Ashur that's constantly bothering the Yidden. V'yovei pam achar pam legloisam. Ke'es hagolus oimedes lios ke'es harishon hekal. The first time he comes, it's going to be not so bad. K'mei hagolus harishona. Because in that golus was only Artzah Zvulun v'Artzah Naftali. As the psukim say that the first shvatim that went into golus were Zvulun and Naftali.
למה?
Huh?
למה זבולון ונפתלי?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
זה הראשונים שיצאו.
Yeah.
כן, אבל למה? כמו אני חושב שבט ראובן ודן וחצי מנשה.
Yeah, that's what it says in the Medrash. It says that, but they were in the Eva Yarden. It's not in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure. I was thinking the same thing.
זבולון לא...
Yeah. Maybe they went together with them.
כנראה
Bimei Pekach, this is what the pasuk says in Malachim. Bimei Pekach Melech Yisrael, Batiklas Pelesa Melech Asher Vayikach Es Iyoin Ves Ovel Beis Malcho Ves Yonoach Ves Kedesh Ves Chotza Ves Hagilad Ves Hagalila Kol Eretz Naftali Vayaglim Ashura. And then in the second Golus, Lehigla Ela Es Ruven V'God V'Chatzi Shev Menashe Shoiv Bebe Yarden HaMizrachi. And then in the Golus HaShlishis, V'Achrein Hichbid Derech Hayam Ev HaYarden Glil HaGoya. Hagolus Hashlishis v'Achrein Hichbid Hoysa Kveda Yoyse Meharishainos Mishum Shehiglas Kol Malchus Yisrael. What were they? Hagolus Harishayna was Derech Hayam Uyam Mishel Tveria Shehiglas Naftali Ayeshel Yam Kineret. Hagolus Hashniya Ruben God V'Chati Shevet HaMenashe Sheichin Vei VaYarden. Hagolus Hashlishis Kol Eretz Yisrael Hanikers Glil HaGoyim Sheisa Goyleles Eileho L'Schera Kol HaGoyim. Fine? Yeah. Okay. So Amar Rav Amar Rabbi Yechanan Kol Hametzik LiYisrael Einoi Oyev. Somebody, the nations that chapter the Yidden, that bother the Yidden, they don't get tired. Like you said, 24 hours around the clock, they make sure to bother them.
Does it mean literally around the clock, or it can also mean that there will be a nation that swaps the other, like the Germans, then it's the Palestinians?
So there's definitely that aspect of it also. It's definitely true. And you see, as you know, today, what's going on with in Gaza and everything, that they're all, who's their Rebbe? Who's their Rebbe? Hitler. And who's Hitler's Rebbe? He had Rebbes that were all the other Meitzarim Israel. They were all the Rishonim. They all feed off each other. They claim they have a Messiah.
יש נקודה לזה, שערב רב, מגרמניה שעלו עם היהודים לישראל הזאת, שזה היום השומר הצעיר וכל זה, הם לא מאמינים בכלום.
כן.
ותאכל חזיר, זה לא משנה להם.
Right.
אני חושב, זה הערב רב שעלה
No, but
מגרמניה.
this is talking about goyim that hate Jews, not about the enemies inside. Those are the enemies outside.
גם הם?
That's a different point.
Okay.
It's true, but it's a different point.
Yeah. Okay. Amar Rabbi Rabbi Yechanan Kol Hametzik LiYisrael Nasa Rosh. Okay. Weiter. I'm sorry. Amar Rabbi Yechanan Kol Hametzik LiYisrael Einoi Oyev. They don't get tired. And what should we do about this? What should we do about this? So the Gemara says that Divrei Torah, the Gemara darshans the pasuk ein uf elo Torah. Uf, which may mean a lashon of oif.
גם על השדים.
Yeah,
יש
Yeah.
עוף שקוראים לו עוף.
yeah.
כן.
That the Gemara says hasoif einecha boi veinenu. That even if you blink, you could lose the Divrei Torah like that. So you have to always keep your eyes open. I mean, the same way that these Mitzarim Yisrael, these nations that are constantly bothering Klal Yisrael, that they don't blink. They want to make sure that the people in the Shivya don't run away. So we have to make sure that when we're focusing on the Torah, we want to make sure that we don't blink to lose anything from the Torah. Also that our minds are constantly focusing on the Torah. Look in brachas on that. Hey, that's where I'm getting this from. In Ofel Torah. Fine. A few more lines and then we'll stop. Lo Aleichem Kol Evrei Derech. It's another pasuk in Eicha. So what does that mean? Lo Aleichem Kol Evrei Derech. Amar Rav and Rabbi Yechanan Mikan lekuvlana min haTorah. Rashi says three different pshatim over here. Let's just take one thing that Rashi says. When a person talks about the tarot, the personal service that he has, we say Lo Aleinu, right? Or we say Rahman al-Islam, or we say Chas v'Shalom. Why do we say that? Because when we talk about it, we don't want it that it should go to other people. So Rashi says, "K'sha'odam meidia tzareh la'achar, tzarech she'yom aloi, lo yitavei zos lecha, kamei sheboi elai."
מה יגיד לו?
So Rashi says, "She'tzarech she'yom aloi, lo yitavei zos lecha, lo tavozot lecha."
או שלא, שלא יבוא.
Yeah. Kamei sheboi elai. Kikasha hu l'shmaya, she'pa'amim chayzeres alav, v'amakvar al kach ein b'ay mishum nichush. And there's nothing.
שמה להגיד לו בכלל? למה להגיד?
אלו פעמים שיושבים ומדברים עם החברים ואומרים,
צריך לסתום את הפה, זה הכל, תשמעו את זה לעצמך.
זה יותר טוב לסתום את הפה.
But then we wouldn't have the sugya.
לא, זה מביא צער גם לבן אדם.
Hashem wanted us to learn this Gemara. If he didn't talk,
The Gemara says, Daga b'levish yisichana.
מה זה?
דאגה בלביש, שמי שדואג יסיחנו לאחרים, שידבר על הדאגות, להוציא את זה לאחרים, והם ישמעו לו והם יעזרו לו. זה לא זה.
זה טוב לא להגיד כלום. זה בא אליך, תקבל את זה.
ושתוק.
אתה רואה את התוצאה אחר כך, מה קורה.
כן, זה יותר טוב. בסדר. אוקיי?
אם אתה מרוויח בלוטרי, כן, תגיד לו.
לא תגיד לשום בן אדם.
בלוטרי גם לא תגיד לו.
כן, זה הכל בשבילי, זה לא בשבילך.
תקבל טלפונים אחר כך.
כן. אני קרוב לך, אני לא שמעת לך כל השנים. כל עברי דרך, what does it mean כל עברי דרך? אומר רב אמרם אומר רב, עשוני כעברי על דס. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu punished them be'esh. Kol over derech, like they're being over al derech Torah. The ilu b'sdaim ksiv, because it says by Sdaim, Hashem himter al Sdaim, Hashem himter al Sdaim. When Hashem came to be b'hapech Sdaim, it says, gofers ve'esh meis Hashem and Hashemayim. It says that there was gofers and esh from Hashem, from Shemayim. But v'ilu b'Yerushalayim ksiv, but the pasuk in Echos says by Yerushalayim it says mimorim shalach esh b'atz moisef ha'yordena. It says that mimorim shalach esh, that Hashem sent the esh mishamayim b'atz moisai in the atzamis of the people va'yordena.
מתי זה היה?
B'chuban Beit HaMikdash.
that Hashem sent the fire down.
Yeah.
We had an interesting talk about that after Shul at the Shtipel. There was a kasha. How can a building made out of marble and stone be set on fire?
Right.
It's not flammable.
Yeah.
So it must have been that Hashem sent down the flame to put the Beit HaMikdash on fire.
Yeah, that's what it says. It says that. I don't remember if it says in Chazal. It says Derech Chlal, marble can't burn, stone can't burn. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it burn like a simla, like a cloth. You throw undershirt in the fire, it's gone in seconds. That's how the Beit HaMikdash went. That was goodbye. The whole thing was over. Vayurdena, Zak Rashi, Besara Faisa. Vainu uni ka'ovrei das shedanani be'esh kisdaim. Just like by Sadaim, Hashem punished them with fire, so too because they were over al das. Now it's very interesting. By Sadaim, Mahaya b'Sadaim, B'Sadaim Haya shlosu chesed echad masheni. Right? And if you're talking that in the Beis HaMikdash by the Bayesheni, there was in the Bayesheni was sinas chinam, they probably weren't being so nice to each other, So it was a little bit Sadaim-like that they were being Isaac and Sadaimium stuff. I'll just say the Gemara says that Lechar Yisraelim El Bnei Shemidu Devreim El Devrei Torah. They didn't want to do Lefnim Rishuras Hadin. You should do Lefnim Rishuras Hadin. You should do Lefnim Rishuras Hadin.
Yeah, but I heard that, but that's a little confusing. Does that mean be machmir on others in halacha? Does it mean do you do extra chesed? That's
whatever
very
works for you.
broad.
Yeah.
But it's a subject.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's each person for them adrega what they know, right?
Does
So
it
we
mean
always
we needed to become chazonishnikim. What do we need?
maybe, and some people maybe, for some people it's fakir. The Chida and others and other Achranim learn that many of the things were that many of the problems of the Churban was fakir, that they were making the Iker Tafel and the Tafel the Iker, meaning that we'll grow huge payas, let's say, but we won't daven. Right, or we'll be very into,
For sure.
all kinds of things for sure, like you're saying, and very much not pneumias. Avodas Hashem has to be much more pneumias.
זה אומר לך פשוט, אל תסתכל על הקנקן, אלא במה שיש בתוכו.
כן.
תראה איך העיקר של הפסוק הזה, לפעמים אתה אומר, איך הוא יכול לעשות דבר כזה?
Yeah.
אז זה גם כן זה, אני לא אומר חילול השם חס ושלום, אלא זה גם מוריד מהערך של הבן אדם. אתה תגיד, אם אני חוזר בתשובה, ואני אומר, אחד עושה, זה קורבן וכל זה והזה, איך הוא עושה דבר כזה?
Yeah.
וקרה לי לפני חודש, לפני שבועיים, קרה לי שם, התחלתי לשאול את השאלה הזאת.
Even Saddam Hussein had a beard.
כן,
That's how.
Okay.
אלא זה גם כן שחס ושלום, לא לעשות, אני לא, אלא לפעמים מה שנעשה בחיים, זה חשוב מאוד.
You know where also they wear a nice sombrero in Mexico? They also wear a nice hat.
כן, הנה.
Wear a nice sombrero over there.
וכמו דרך
Yeah. One more line in the Gemara. Uksiv vayigdal avoin bas ami is a pasuk in Perek Daled in Eicha. Vayigdal avoin bas ami mechata sedoim. V'chimase panim yesh badavar. It says that the avoin bas ami, the avoinus of Klal Yisrael, were greater than chata sedoim. So we see that by Sedoim they had the whole city was nepach. They had a whole mapecha. And you think Hashem wouldn't punish Klal Yisrael like that if they were deserving of it? It sounds like they should have had that punishment, right? So, look at Rashi. On the top of the Amud. If Klal Yisrael was worse than Sedoim, why didn't they get turned over like Sedoim? So, Dr. Gemara, there was a mila that Yerushalayim had. Yerushalayim had a mila that Sedoim didn't have. The Ilu b'Sedoim ksiv. The pasuk in Yechezkel tells us about Sedoim. Hinei zehoya avoin Sedoim. Achoisech goin sivas lechem v'yad ani v'evian lo yechzika. Nobody had any rachmanus in anybody. Nobody had
סדום ובירושלים.
Bizdam. Lo haya echad shaya merachem al hasheni. Lo haya shum rachmanut b'chol ha'ir Sodom.
כן, גזר, הכל היה שם.
V'ilu b'Yerushalayim ksiv yedein noshim rachmani yis bishlu yaldeya. Pasuk says that kshehoisa achas mevashelis es yalda kedei loichlo, they would invite their friends. I mean, whatever this means, that they would when they would have to eat their children,
They invite friends.
they would invite their friends to eat them
לא,
together.
שיהיה חסד, שלפחות גם אחרים לא יקפאו ברעב. אתה מבין? במקום שהיא תשמור הכל לעצמה,
אז הם
לפחות שעוד
מבשלים את הילדים ואוכלים אותם.
לא היה מה
Echlim-
לאכול.
Yeah.
There was nothing else, זה עוד שהם גובים ברעב. אז
Okay,
עשו לפחות
let's-
שיהיה חסד.
Let's
עשו חסד.
stop here, okay?
Yeah.
You know what? We're just about done the Gemara, so let's just finish up real quick. Silo kalabire Hashem bekirbi. It's another pasuk in Eicha. What does it mean? Silo kalabire Hashem bekirbi. The Gemara says Ka'adam shem lachaber nifsala matpei azu. In the times of the Gemara, the way currency worked, the way coins worked, was that the coin had to be in very good shape. Today, a penny's a penny, even if it's all smashed up. Sure. And Talmud will be home in about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. The coins had to be in perfect shape. If a coin got dented or a coin got smashed, so then it lost its value. And it's negev a kama yonim and halacha. So silo kalabire Hashem bekirbi. So what does it mean, silo kalabire Hashem bekirbi? It's all they looked at HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they looked at the Torah as if it was a coin that was nifsal. Ka'adam shamel lachaver, like a person tells his friend, nifsala matpei azu. Sila is a lashon of something that's like gone. It's a lashon of ruined. What?
זה סיגים.
Yeah. It's not worth anything anymore.
It's copper and they put כסף על זה.
Gold
Yeah.
plated.
Yeah. Kasper chayis lasigim. That's the other pasuk. Yeah. So that's what they said, but they said that about HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Torah. They said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is old-fashioned. We can't use them anymore. We throw them out. Patzu alayich pihem. What does that mean? They opened up their mouths. Omar Rav Amar Rabbi Yechon v'shvil ma hiktim pel la'ayin. This is a very famous Gemara. What's the pshat in the Seder Aleph Beis? We said in the beginning that Eicha is al Seder Aleph Beis. Besides for that, the letter Pei comes before Ayin. V'shvil meraglim she'amar b'fiyah ma shelo b'einayim. Because the meraglim spoke about things that they didn't see with their eyes, right? Because they said all kinds of things, but they weren't medakdik on what they said based on what they saw. That was the lashon hara that they said when they came back from Eretz Yisrael. So they said that so that's why in Eicha, which is the being mekainen and being misabel on the churban, which started from the churban of the meraglim. So that's why sheikdimu maimer piyam achalei rov ba'ayin. They said things before they saw them.
השאלה הזו עכשיו, השם, הוא יודע מה קורה פה.
כן.
שלחו מרגלים, לא שלחו, וכל זה באו, כן, ארץ טובה, בשביל לשקר, הוא אומר את האמת קודם.
Yeah. So I saw, maybe it's Rashi, I don't remember. But if Moshe Rabbeinu would have told Klal Yisrael before sending the Meraglim, Al tira mehem, Al tifchas, Al taretz mipneihem,
Okay, yes.
then they would have went and nothing would have happened. There's almost like a time on Moshe Rabbeinu that he should have said something like that, but he didn't. So because really, you have to look at in the Guraria in the beginning of Parsha Shlach. That I don't know. But that was a time. Akapanim, that's what it says. So that's the pshat why the whole thing happened with the Meraglim. And the Bechia is Ba'ayim. Right? So that's why it's like Dimu Peh La'ayim. So that's why they got themselves in trouble. Okay. One more line of the Gemara. That my nation was eating the lechem Hashem loy karo. What does it mean Hashem loy karo? Somebody who eats from the Jewish breads is taim tam lechem. That's you.
Yeah.
But a person who doesn't eat from the Jewish breads is not taim tam lechem. What does this mean? Zok Rashi.
זה לא לחם, זה כסף.
הם רצו לגזול את היהודים. הם רוצים לגזול and they want to take and steal everything from the יהודים.
כל הבתים של היהודים. זה מה שעשו שם. זה הלחם של היהודים.
Okay, one more thing. Hashem lo karo. Why did this happen? Hashem lo karo, the reason why they had this einish is because they didn't call out b'shem Hashem. What does that mean they didn't call out b'shem Hashem? Could be means that they didn't make brachas. Could be means that they weren't davening properly. But the Gemara says, Rav Amar Elu Hadayonim. These are the Dayonim, that they weren't passing the halachas properly. They were passing Shaloi Kedin. Ushmol Amar Elu Melamdei Tinoikos. These are the Rebbeim of young children. Sha'isam Malachim Remiyah. That they were unfair and they weren't erlich people, and they did a lot of that they were doing. Really, the Melamdei Tinoikos, the Chazal speak very, very highly of the rebbeim of young children, because we know the Gemara says that Eina Olam Eskayim Ela B'Shvel Piyam Shal Tinoikos Shal Bizraba. So a person is like the Medrash says that Yavayu Taharim V'Yaska B'Taharim. There's a certain level of kedusha and tara when you're teaching children, and a rebbe's responsibility is to be very, very erlich and very, very careful about his business when he's in his dealings. But a person who's doing that and at the same time is not being erlich, so not only could he damage the chinuch of the children, but it's yeah, and that's the Gemara. It's the Gemara of Basra that came on. A mistake came in the al. Once it goes in, it doesn't come out. You can't, it's more. It's more important for a Rebbe to teach something accurately. I forgot who said it. I think the Vilna Gaon said they say about the Vilna Gaon. He went back to his Aleph Beis Rebbe, and he thanked him. He said, "Well, what are you thanking me so much for?" He said, "Because you're the only one that taught me Torah Zamas."
Wow.
I don't know if it's true enough. That's what they say. Okay, the Olam should have a easy rest of the fast, and B'ezrat Hashem, we should be zeichet to see the Geula and Yeshua's Bekarv.
Sure.